Hello everyone, this is Bhupen Sharma, and in this video we are going to discuss about Spring Boot properties that we are using. So let's get started. So there are a few things that I just want to tell about the properties. The idea of having a property is to have a lesser configurations when you compare it with the standard Spring framework. I can give you an example. You have to put a data source in an XML file to configure your Oracle or MySQL, but now you can do the same thing using property file in a Spring Boot. So there is a concept of default application properties in Spring Boot called application.properties. Whenever you create a project, it creates application.properties, and it auto configured with your project. So whatever the properties that you're gonna put, you can inject those properties in your classes. Where the application.properties there, it is in src main resource directory. So by using this default file, we don't have to explicitly register a property source or even provide a path to a property file, because by default it comes with configure. Now we can define another property source, or we can configure a path, but we can discuss that in later videos. So what are the properties Spring Boot provides? There are a lot of according to the Spring ecosystem. For example, Spring Batch has specific properties. If you are using a Spring Actuator, it has its own properties. If you are using JPA, it has its own properties. Tomcat has its own properties, Kafka, and all those things. The other major point is that we don't need to specify all the default properties in all the cases. We can specify them only on by demand. So either you want to change it, or you want there is a default configuration for anything, and then if you want to override it, then only we need to put it. So by using this property, it reduced a lot of XML configurations, and I gave you one of the best example is putting a JNDI or putting a data source in a normal Spring framework versus Spring Boot. Let's go through one of the project and let's see how these property things works. So let's start with creating a project. I'll say bhupen.in and understand properties. And I'll take web and generate project. This project has been created. Now let's open the IntelliJ. So this is my project from the last video. Let's create another one. Open, and I'm gonna go understand property. I'm gonna restore it. Okay, let's compile it by as it is. Compile and see everything is good. Yep, it's compiled. So if you go and see here in main resource, you'll see this application.properties, and it is blank because we don't need to specify all the defaults. In case of any overrides, or you want to add your own properties, you might have to specify, but not in case of default properties. So before we do anything, let's just copy the old control. Before we move forward, let's copy the old controllers from the last videos that I created, so that it will be easy to understand. So what I'm going to do is I just say copy, and then I just put it here and say paste. Okay, so the controllers are there now, and let's build it again. So I didn't do anything related to properties. I just want to make sure that I'm able to build the project with the post controller and get controller. And then let's run this application. Yeah, it will start in 8080. Let's go ahead and test it by ourselves, a get call, and it is working. So now instead of 8080, I want my port to be 9090. So what I'll do is that I'll go here and say server dot port equals to 9090. So this is the first time I'm trying to put any property and saying that no, I don't want to use the default port. And then let's do that now. Let's clean, compile it, and see, run it. So now it is started as 9090. See here. So this request might not work because it is pointing to 8080. Yep. So I'm not getting any response. So let's change to 90 and 90 here, and I can see it's working. So this is one of the example where I can define my properties. Now how to inject those properties if I want to inject. So let's create some properties. So what we'll do is we'll replace these default values with the property values. So let's do one thing. Let's create a properties. So it's a default. Let's create my own default dot course dot name equals to, I'll say SAP HANA, and then default dot course dot what is the field name? We can use the same field name, chapter count equals to 7, or let's put 3. Okay, so I created those properties. Now I want to inject those properties. So injecting those properties will be very simple. You have to just first create the type C name and type the annotation @value, and then you provide the property name. So what you're doing is basically you are injecting this property to this variable, and then we'll do the same thing for the other one as well. So let's put int and chapter count. Okay, and then I'll say here chapter count is the property. So now I retrieve those properties in these values, but I have to use it. So what I'll do is I'll create another endpoint for get and say let me get my default properties. What is my default course? And then get default course. Okay, and then here I'll go and just change the reference of the values. So here I can keep it like that. That's fine. I just need to make sure that it has this value. It has the value from the properties. So instead of chapters count, I can put chapters count here, because I just want to I don't want to mess with this string with this one variable name, sorry. So let's compile this project and see whether it is working or not working. Okay, let's run the server again and let's use this one. So I should, if I use this endpoint, I should get these two things. It started, and then let's use my course, and I got this one. So I got the properties from whatever I provided in the properties file. That's all for this video. Thanks guys.